Before this story begins, there are certain roads in rural villages that people avoid even during daylight, because the locals believe that when midnight falls, it isn't only darkness that descends. Something else walks those roads. Some dismiss these stories as old superstitions. Others believe they are the lingering echoes of tragedies that were never forgotten. But after what happened to me that night, I have never traveled through that bamboo grove alone again. What you're about to hear is the most terrifying experience of my life. This happened about 5 years ago. Our village was small, surrounded by endless rice fields, ponds, and dense bamboo forests. During the day, it was peaceful and beautiful. But after midnight, everything changed. Especially the long bamboo grove on the eastern side of the village. The elders always warned us, if someone calls your name after midnight while you're passing the bamboo grove, don't answer. And whatever happens, never look back. I never believed those stories. My name is Riyadh. At the time, I was 24 years old. I worked at a small pharmacy in the nearby market. That evening, we were busy completing the monthly accounts, so the shop closed much later than usual. When I checked my watch, it was already 12:45 a.m. My coworkers tried to stop me. "Stay here tonight. Go home in the morning." I laughed. "It's only a 20-minute ride. What's there to be afraid of?" I unlocked my old bicycle and started riding home. The marketplace was completely deserted. Every shop had already closed. Only the dying glow of a tea stall's stove flickered in the distance. There wasn't a single person on the road. Only the occasional bark of a stray dog broke the silence. A few minutes later, I passed the last streetlight of the village. Behind me, there was civilization. Ahead of me, only darkness. The weak headlight on my bicycle became my only source of light. The night felt strangely cold, even though it wasn't winter. Soon, I reached the entrance to the bamboo grove. I had crossed this road hundreds of times during the day, but that night, everything looked different. The bamboo seemed impossibly tall. They swayed slowly, even though there wasn't any wind. I tried to convince myself it was only my imagination. I pedaled faster. Then, I heard it. Crunch, crunch, crunch. The sound was coming from inside the bamboo grove. It sounded exactly like someone walking across dry bamboo leaves. I didn't stop. Instead, I pedaled even harder. But something felt terribly wrong. The faster I rode, the closer the footsteps became. Crunch, crunch, crunch. It was keeping pace with me. I forced myself to glance toward the bamboo grove. Nothing. Only darkness and endless rows of bamboo. Suddenly, my bicycle headlight flickered. It went out, then came back on. I assumed the battery was dying, but a few seconds later, it happened again. Darkness, light, darkness, light. Every time the light disappeared, the darkness around me felt closer, heavier, as if it were alive. Then, I heard a voice, very softly, very close. "Riyadh." My entire body froze. That was impossible. Nobody should have known I was there. I told myself I must have imagined it. Then the voice came again, clearer this time. "Riyadh, look this way." my heart began pounding so violently that I could hear it. The old warning suddenly echoed inside my mind. If someone calls your name, don't answer. Don't turn around. I kept my mouth shut. I focused only on the road ahead. Then, I noticed something even more terrifying. The bicycle was becoming heavier, as if someone behind me was holding it back. I pushed the pedals with all my strength, but the bicycle barely moved. Then, I felt it, a freezing breath, slowly brushing against the back of my neck. At that exact moment, I realized I was no longer alone. I kept my head down and continued pedaling. I didn't dare look behind me. But the icy breath remained on the back of my neck. It felt as though someone was standing directly behind me, watching, waiting. Then, I heard it. A quiet laugh, a woman's laugh, soft, yet disturbingly unnatural. It was the kind of sound that sends a chill through your entire body. My hands began to tremble. Suddenly, the bell on my bicycle rang by itself. Ding, ding. I hadn't even touched it. My heart nearly stopped. Then, without warning, the bicycle's headlight went completely out. Absolute darkness surrounded me. I couldn't even see the road anymore. Still, I didn't stop, because deep inside, I knew that if I stopped for even a second, I would never make it home alive. Then, a figure appeared ahead, standing in the middle of the road. A woman, wearing a long white dress. Her long black hair covered most of her face. She didn't move. She simply stood there, waiting. I reached for the brakes, but something inside me screamed not to stop. The closer I got, the more certain I became. She wasn't human. Then, slowly, she lifted her head. For the first time, I saw her face. Deathly pale, completely emotionless. Her eyes were unnaturally white, and a slow, terrifying smile spread across her lips. Fear overwhelmed me. I shut my eyes, held the handlebars tightly, and rode straight toward her. I was convinced this was the end. A few seconds later, I opened my eyes. The road was empty. She had vanished. I glanced behind me. Nothing. No one. Only an endless stretch of darkness. Yet, that chilling laughter still echoed through the bamboo grove. It felt as though she was still there, watching me from somewhere beyond the trees. Then, without a single breeze, every bamboo stalk around me began shaking violently. The sound echoed through the night. Crunch, crunch, crunch. It no longer sounded like one person. It sounded like hundreds of footsteps moving together through the darkness. Panic completely took over. I pedaled harder than I ever had in my life. Then, something changed. The bicycle suddenly became much heavier. It felt as if someone had quietly climbed onto the rear carrier behind me. The back wheel struggled to move. My breathing became frantic. Then, a voice whispered beside my right ear, "Don't look back." This voice was different. It wasn't threatening. It sounded protective, as though someone was trying to save me. I listened. I kept my eyes fixed on the road. I never turned around. Moments later, from the distance, the first call to prayer echoed from our village mosque, the Adhan for Fajr. Allahu Akbar. The instant the call reached the bamboo grove, everything stopped. The laughter, the footsteps, the freezing breath. Even the bamboo became perfectly still. Silence. Complete silence. I didn't waste another second. I rode straight home. When I finally arrived, my entire body was shaking uncontrollably. That very night, a burning fever consumed me. For the next 3 days, I drifted in and out of consciousness. According to my family, I repeated only one sentence over and over again. It wasn't human. 3 days later, after I recovered, I returned to the bamboo grove. This time, in broad daylight. I wanted to convince myself that everything had been a nightmare. But as I reached the exact spot where I had seen the woman, I noticed something lying in the middle of the road. An old silver anklet, broken, covered with dirt. I picked it up and showed it to the oldest man in our village. The moment he saw it, his face turned pale. He sighed deeply before speaking. About 20 years ago, a young bride disappeared near that bamboo grove while returning home after her wedding. Some say she was murdered. Others believe something far more sinister took her. Since that night, people have occasionally seen a woman dressed in white standing on that road. Those who answer when she calls their name never return the same. Since that terrifying night, I have never traveled alone through that bamboo grove after midnight. Not once. Even today, the elders in our village still repeat the same warning. If you ever pass that road after midnight, and someone calls your name from the darkness, don't answer. And whatever happens, never, ever look back.